Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the NFT-verse. Today we have Rhett Dashwood back on the show. He actually came on the channel much earlier this year. We talked about NFTs. If you're not familiar with those are non-fungible tokens. I would encourage you guys, if you're interested in NFTs, Rhett does a great job on his YouTube channel of discussing NFTs, providing information on what they are, how you can get involved. So go ahead and pause the video, go over to Rhett Dashwood's channel. We'll provide a link to that in the description below. Make sure you guys subscribe to him. Rhett, it's a pleasure to have you back on the show.
Totally appreciated. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so the NFT space has been a whirlwind, I think, just to say the least, right? What in the world is going on in this market? But before we get to that, could you go through very briefly what are NFTs and what's happened over the last year in the NFT space?
Sure. Well, just briefly, NFTs. I won't go into the full spiel. I've got a separate video, and you've also done a video about non-fungible tokens. But essentially, it's the digital certificate of authenticity of any digital file which lives on the blockchain, which authenticates sort of the ownership, the transfer, the transactions that happen, provenance, all that type of thing, so that now digital files of anything, could be artwork, could be poetry, tweets, whatever, can now have a market, and with that market comes value, and it brings up a whirlwind of interest which hasn't been possible in the past. Although we've had the internet and email and digital files, this is the sort of this last year is when everyone has woken up that we can now, through the blockchain, verify things and it not be sort of instantaneously copyable by infinite amount of people. So you can have proof of ownership of something, which is, and there's lots of other benefits, but in a nutshell, that is sort of what is happening. And because of that, the market is in price finding territory at the moment. We don't know. Some things are vastly undervalued and you can buy them and make huge profits, and some things are totally overvalued. And so it's a very volatile market, but it's a very fun and busy, active space to be in, where many millionaires are being made. And, we've already seen articles saying NFTs are dead in mainstream media, and then the next month they're back on the agenda, making multiple millions of dollars, and big companies coming on. For instance, it makes me think of CryptoPunks.
Right.
That was a project that has been around for like 3 to 4 years and was going nowhere for like most of those years. And then it was called, just by many people, sort of, when it was getting up to tens of thousands of dollars trading, it was just all wash trading to people, just like early crypto was to a lot of people. How can pixels be worth that much? And then now, just recently, it is not irregular to see them going for $500,000, $1 million, being bought by celebrities like Logan Paul or KSI, like YouTube personalities. And now Visa has come on board announcing that they've bought a CryptoPunk. So it's far from being a dead market, right? And we're still in price discovery, and we're still early, still before, most, I don't even see mainstream media really even talking about NFTs, apart from like a $69 million one-off sale by Beeple or something a few months ago. So it's still a space which is really interesting to explore.
Yeah, and it seems like artists are probably the first to really investigate the NFT space. And I mean, it seems like also there's so much more potential as well that could be coming in the next several decades to the NFT space. But it's really exciting to see artists explore the space and see what it can become ultimately. But yeah, so if someone wanted to get into the NFT space, where do you start? What do you do? Where would they go? Because most people, I feel like, especially with my audience, we don't really talk about NFTs very frequently. But I do have an interest in them because I see what they're doing, and I see them a lot of them are doing really, really well, and they have these incredible communities. And you have artists launching NFTs that have never been interested in crypto before, but now they're interested. Um, where does someone actually start with NFTs?
Sure. So I, apart from like if you're uninitiated to crypto at all, so you've first got to get your head over crypto and getting a MetaMask wallet and being sort of set up to trade, like transact in crypto. I do have a video on that. This here, how to install MetaMask and connect to OpenSea. But just, if you're past that hurdle and if you're looking for like projects or where to go to find something of value, there people find value in all different aspects, and it's such a huge market. So just like in everyday life, people collect small collectible buttons or little trading cards or for cheap, and then you have the other end of the spectrum where you've got art galleries collecting huge installations and massive sculptures that none of us would ever envisage that we would ever want. But they're collecting for a whole different reason. They're trying to attract an event or something. So people collect things for all different reasons, from sports memorabilia to art lovers to wanting to be part of a club. So you got to first find out what you're interested in, like, what you're going to be attracted to. Because I think if you're in this just for the gains, like maybe just stick to crypto. If you just want to talk about price action or like crypto projects, DeFi, okay, maybe this isn't for you. But a lot of people are interested in the culture and the idea that the potential of what Ethereum was initially that got people excited, how you can build things on top of it. Well, this is like one of the realizations of that. And people are building projects on top of Ethereum. And then there's like the potential that all those projects have in and of themselves. So whether you're joining a club, the thing that's popular right at the minute is sort of profile picture, avatar, collectible projects. Mm-hmm. That's probably off the back of CryptoPunks because they've done so well and made it into the media. The sort of second rung that came, it was only like 3 months ago, Bored Ape Yacht Club has been doing really well. You could buy in at like 0.08 ETH, and now the floor is maybe like 32 ETH for those from a few months ago. And that's what I'm saying. Like, people want to be part of that club. People like the project that you get to be part of the Discord and be part of that community and be just part of the evolution of that project and where it's going. And people are building things on top of that, like they're launching their own wine brands or their beers, and they're putting their Bored Ape on it, let alone just having it as their profile picture and then getting sort of clout from having an avatar as their Twitter profile and getting more followers from that. People collect for all different reasons, and maybe those profile pictures are like a status signaling thing. Whereas before, like early cryptos would have crypto people, maybe the Lamborghini was the thing.
Yeah.
You show that, yeah. And then people are like, okay, this is a player in crypto. He's got rich. No one's showing Lamborghinis anymore, but they'll show a CryptoPunk, they'll show a Bored Ape, they'll show a Fidenza.
Yeah, it's like a status symbol.
Yeah. Once you know that those people, you've got that as your profile picture or your banner, that you own a Fidenza or something that's selling for millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars, then that's the new Rolex watch. Like, that's the thing that you've got to show. And that's just one part of it. And then you have totally legit lovers of art who are looking for just small artists to collect and who want to support those artists because they love the illustrations that they do and they just want them to be able to do those more. Or you just get like, I think there was like a 12-year-old kid who did some pixel whales, and he did like a small collectible project. And because he's a 12-year-old kid, it's a story, and it sold out really quickly, and he made lots of money from it. And so now that I saw that on like Google News headlines that about that project and that kid. And I don't think the people who are buying into that think that their little pixel whales made by a 12-year-old are going to be million-dollar pieces of art in the future. They're just there to sort of support and help like other people get into the space and to be, be involved in it.
Right.
So there's a whole range of reasons. Like some people might, collect things, and I know the collectors that I've accumulated and reach out to me are very different to the collectors who are part of another artist that I know, that they have a different sort of idea and views on the world, and it's sort of you buy into whatever that is. Just like, I buy into being a subscriber to your channel because of what you bring. There's heaps of other different YouTube channels which I buy into for totally different reasons, and I want to be a part of that for other reasons.
So there's a lot of different like communities, you would say, like even sub communities within the NFT space that follow various artists and whatnot, and maybe try to collect their work over someone else's because they like that specific type of art or something. So it's interesting because I've noticed in just within the cryptoverse, it seems like there's definitely like sub communities within the NFT space. There's sort of like sub communities even within the the more traditional crypto space, right? You have sort of like some people are very much on board with a certain project over a different project, right? And it almost becomes like this like like this, everyone's on this one project and they love it to death, but every other project they don't like. And you have someone like this for a lot of different things. But furthermore, beyond that, I think what's interesting is, there's a ton of people that are only interested in crypto in terms of like, the normal, like, or the more traditional crypto assets, right? Like the actual, like Ethereum, Bitcoin, that kind of stuff. And then there's the NFT space, which is kind of like a whole separate community of people. And then there is some overlap. There's some overlap, I would say, between both communities. But it seems to me that there's not a lot, right? Like there's some overlap for sure. But you still have a majority of people that are more interested in the the more traditional cryptocurrency space. They have no interest in the NFT space. And then I'm guessing it also is the same way for the NFT space to the traditional. Would you say, like, do you kind of agree with that, or do you see it differently?
That's a good observation. I sort of agree, because I think in the early stages it was only crypto people, because that was the only type of people that knew how to buy NFTs or what they were. But now there's so many uninitiated people who want to get into NFTs who don't know anything about crypto. And they're getting initiated into crypto via NFTs because maybe they're a basketball fan and they want to own a LeBron NFT trading card, or maybe whether they're an art lover or some other reason they want to, these YouTubers who want to signal that they own a crypto punk or a Bored Ape. They're having to learn about crypto and get into it because they need Ethereum to buy these things, and they need some wallets. So like I said, like this is the use case for crypto. When everyone was saying, what's the point of crypto? You can't use it for anything. It's like, we're starting to see you can use it for something now. This is why it's valuable. This is always why it was going to be valuable. And we're starting to see that roll out. And this is not the end. Like, this is the beginning. There's going to be way more reasons that crypto is more valuable than fiat. So yeah, I am part of like 100 too many Discords, trying to sort of keep up with the different communities. I sort of have to claim bankruptcy sometimes on these Discords, and I can't keep up. But it's culture. Like, I might not be into. I've turned down lots of collabs and things for like top NFL players, because I'm not American. I don't really understand NFL. I don't want to get into something which I'm not a fan of, which I'm not, into. Even if they have, several million followers on Instagram, I can't collab with them because I'm not in it for the cash grab. I'm in it for, as they say, the technology. I'm in it for the technology, but right. I like money just as much as the next person. But I'm in it to experiment. And it doesn't always go right. But it's worth. I always find it's worth being early, and I love the sort of looking and exploring part of it, which is actually what, a lot of the pieces I've done for us have been about. It's about looking up, looking at the potential, and looking at what can be in the future.
Right. Yeah, which is probably a good time to segue into some of the stuff that you've done. So, if you're not familiar, Rhett actually created the Into the Cryptoverse logo. We had like a competition. I guess I don't even know when it was. It was probably at least a year ago, maybe more than maybe 18 months ago or something, on creating the logo for Into the Cryptoverse. And Rhett, I thought had the most interesting design, and I really really liked it. And so yeah, like about a year ago, I reached out to Red and we discussed NFTs and what can we do there. So this has been a whole process. So could you maybe like walk us through some of the things that you've made and kind of go through the story behind it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like we said, I don't know if your audience is, particularly art people. They're sort of crypto, so I won't go into too much depth into the process of making or all that. But yeah, like you said, yeah, like we've known each other since your channel was just starting. I did the logo for it. Um, I've been watching your stuff since you were like less than 10,000 followers, subscribers on your channel. So um, I was glad that we could sort of, talk about NFTs. And we started this process back in December last year before anyone knew what, really NFTs were. It wasn't mainstream news. There was no big sales. It was just sort of taking the first steps into it. And so I'm glad that we haven't released something really quickly, but really, these weren't released back then. They don't have the provenance of like being released in 2019 or something like that, but they were, theorized and thought up back then. So I've got Selenophile and Discovery here on the screen. So if we look at this one, the planets, the moons themselves, and the rings actually make up the logo of Into the Cryptoverse. So it's like a 3D interpretation of it. We've got the astronaut, and he is looking up at the sky. And the theme throughout the three pieces is exactly that. It's, I look at the next one, the idea of discovery. It's the idea of finding a new space, which this NFT is, and crypto as well. And it's, even the terminology is prevalent everywhere. Things are mooning. And where does all that come from? It comes from like when we first went to the moon. When we first went to the moon, lots of people saw the world differently. When we look back at ourselves from the perspective of the moon, the fact that we could actually go to the moon, it's like looking up and realizing a perspective and a potential that we never realized before. And that's how I see this NFT space and blockchain technology. And I don't think it's overstating it to say we're sort of like in a renaissance period where things are changing and shifts are happening, and we're looking at things from a different angle, and there is so much potential, and that's sort of being realized by only a few people at the moment. And so that's what this whole thing was based around. It's like stepping into a new world, looking to the stars, potentially being a moon boy, and seeing what we can do with this technology.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's great. I really like these pieces too because, like I really wanted something that resonated with me, and these are the images where you can kind of see like, okay, we have the planet, right? We have the moon, we have the Cryptoverse logo in there, and I feel like a lot of us can sort of identify with that, which is I really do like these. I think was there one more as well.
Yeah, so because you haven't released the third one on Twitter, you happy to show it now?
Yeah, go ahead and
Let's
go
do
ahead and
it.
show it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the third one you haven't shown yet. So reflected in his helmet is the Into the Cryptoverse sort of planets and logo. So the logo is inferred. It's it's not like just slapped on the bottom as a branding thing. It's integrated into the piece.
Yeah, I really
So
like
yeah,
that.
we've got the three, the three moon boys, the three astronauts discovering crypto and NFTs. And so it's like a collectible. You might want to discuss like how like this one I think is a one of one going for auction,
Right.
but they're all about a similar theme about sort of this being you're in a time and place and you're collecting something which can only exist right now. Like we're doing a collab. I don't know if we'll do another one in the future, maybe not, but
Right.
this is sort of where we're at right now. And whenever I've got a fairly big collection of NFTs now, and I look back at them sometimes and I'm like, oh, that's right. That's when when you look at ticket stubs from an event or something, or you go, oh, that's right. That's when I went to that concert, or that's when I went to that event. And I look at my NFTs the same way now, and I look at them and go, oh, that's when I did that launch with that person, or that's when I went to that Decentraland thing and I got this badge. And so I look back at those things and it reminds me of where I was, even though it's just been months or less than a year.
Right.
It is a little collectible reminder of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool. I actually have I have some NFTs myself that I'm sort of slowly exploring the space over the last year, and I mean, to be completely honest, like it took off a lot more than I anticipated, and even like you said, like a couple months ago or a month or two ago, it seemed like everyone was saying, all right, NFTs are dead, and it seems like they're back just as quickly as people said that, which is really interesting. Kind of reminds you of sort of like the early days in general of a lot of projects when they launch, and how many times has Bitcoin died, right?
Yeah,
Over
exactly.
the last 11 years.
Yeah. No, I think about it the same way. Like it, it's funny how quickly it resurrected. Like they were headlines everywhere. NFTs dead on lots of mainstream places, but here we are back again, and it's well, the bear market in NFTs lasted maybe 2 months. So I'm not saying there won't be another one. Like
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, of course.
but it's like Bitcoin. It's gonna die every so often in the headlines. So I just ignore it. But it's really the technology and the people entering the space and the work that's being done now, which will pave the way for what's to come. There's so many interesting things happening, and I think to ignore it as a space is a mistake. Just like it reminds me, because like I said, well, I've been around since the start of your channel when there was just no one watching your videos about Cardano at 2 cents. And like we just hit $3 the other day. Uh, no one cares when it's,
Yeah, no one
when
ever cared. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping in maybe 1 or 2 years we'll look back and like remember when no one cared about NFTs.
Yeah.
Remember when that was a funny stage, and now it's just in 2 years' time we'll look back and it'll be like it's just mainstream. Like everyone has knows what NFTs are and what it's about.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really interesting perspective. I have a question for you too. Because right now it seems like most of all the NFT stuff is happening on the Ethereum network. Do you have any like what's going? Are there any activity or any notable activity on any other networks, or is it basically just all Ethereum at the moment?
Well, ETH is king at the moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where all the culture is happening. So there are some notable movements in other blockchains. Tezos has some platforms that indie sort of artists like to play around with. No huge sales or anything, but it's a nice little platform. Flow blockchain, because they did Top Shots, Crypto Kitties back in the day. They've got a pedigree of launching sort of solid things. People sometimes don't like it so much; it's a bit centralized. So that's interesting to see that play out against each other. how important is decentralization in the NFT world. Um, and then you've got other ones like, oh, yeah, I won't say the negative things about
Right.
them, but you do have things like Binance Smart Chain that are doing NFTs. You've
Mm-hmm.
got lots of different platforms and blockchains. Cardano, I like that chain, but they're still brand new and they
Right.
haven't even released the smart contracts properly to be able to grow that ecosystem yet. So it's still to be seen.
Yeah, they don't. They
But I
still have a lot
will,
to prove for sure.
yeah, and it's a difficult use case because it's like even if it is good, uh, is it like Betamax versus VHS, where just because VHS got the foothold, maybe that's ETH, has the foothold in the audience, maybe it doesn't matter if you're better, if you're just a little bit too late, maybe,
Right.
or maybe it's like Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox. There's a space for all of those communities.
Or is it MySpace and Facebook? Where
Yeah.
there's so many different. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, and I don't think Ethereum is going anywhere. I mean, I do
Yeah.
think it's. I mean, it's definitely the biggest, and will probably remain the biggest. Um, at least.
Yeah, I still kick myself. I was a Bitcoin maximalist for way too long. I was a Bitcoin maxi, and I looked at Ethereum at $1 and said, "What's the point?" So
Yeah.
I've learned my lessons for not looking at new technology and not and looking at new spaces with an open mind, like NFTs. And I'm so glad I did that because if I didn't change my perspective, I wouldn't have discovered NFTs and met so many new people. Being a Bitcoin maxi, I never met anyone. I never sort of talked about the like a community or potential of things. But ever since getting into Ethereum and NFTs, I'm in like I said, 100 discords. I'm chatting to people all the time. I'm meeting new artists. I'm meeting new people who are working on brand new things. It's a whole different ball game.
Right. Well, that's really interesting for sure. I mean, I definitely haven't joined that many communities, but I've joined a few, and there's definitely a lot of activity going on there. Um, by the way, we are just so everyone knows, we are launching these NFTs on I believe the 30th, um, August 30th. So if you are interested in that, make sure to follow along, and those will be launched in next or this coming Monday, I guess. Um, but anyways, I mean, Rhett, it's been really great having you on, and I want to, I definitely want to continue exploring the NFT space, especially if it does continue this. It seems like it's continuing to gain momentum, like the space as a whole, and it'll be interesting to see like in a few years when we look back on the early days and whatnot. I mean, we're not as early as we were, say, at the beginning of the year or late last year, but still, it's 2021, and what'll it look like in 2025? What'll it look like in 2030? So this is definitely an interesting time. It was great to have you on. And remember, guys, if you don't follow Rhett, go to his YouTube channel. He also has an Instagram as well. You guys can follow him on Instagram, and he's got his own website. We'll leave all the relevant links to follow Rhett in the description below. If you want to keep up with what he's doing and the artwork that he's putting out, the NFTs and whatnot. So Rhett, thank you for coming on again. It was a pleasure to have you, and hopefully we'll have you again in the future.
Sweet. Thanks, Ben.